The other thing associated with the Holy Year is the Indulgence, and this has a long and a bit of a complicated history, really, the notion of indulgences, and there's some reasons why people will avoid talking about them. The time of the Protestant Reformation, part of the difficulty was an abuse of the practice of indulgences. So what was it about, the indulgence? In old-fashioned terminology, it was about the temporal punishment due to sin, or as Pope Francis put it when he announced the Holy Year, it's the consequences of sin, residual effects of sin. We can get our sins forgiven very easily by going to celebrate the sacrament of reconciliation, and the guilt of our sins is removed. We believe that. But the consequences of our sins remain, and the consequences of our sins can be very serious. And how are we to work through the consequences of our sins? In the case of sins against justice, for example, if I confess a sin against justice, I'll be asked to think about restitution. In other words, I'll be asked to think about trying to undo the consequences of the unjust thing that I've done. If I've stolen something, or if I've gossiped about somebody and taken their good name, I'll be asked to think about how I might undo the damage I've done. But this is true of all our sins. Sometimes the consequences are very obvious to us, sometimes they're not so clear. So the indulgence is concerned with that aspect of our sins, that there are these residual effects of sin, and there's a purification needed in us personally and in us as a community to try to address and see how the consequences of our sins might be undone. So that's what the indulgence is about. It depends really on a stronger sense maybe than we have in recent times of the fact that we all belong together. We're not just individuals, but we belong together in solidarity, in grace and in sin. What does that mean? It means if I sin, my sins have consequences for you, because we're all part of the same body. If I receive gifts of grace and act virtuously, that has consequences for you as well, because we're all parts of the same body. And one of the reasons I think it's difficult in modern times to understand the indulgences is because we maybe don't have as strong a sense now of that belonging together, of our solidarity in grace and in sin, so that the way any of us lives has effects on the whole atmosphere in which we all live. So we're all affected by the sins of others, we're all affected by the holiness and goodness of others as well. And the indulgence is a way of trying to share with those of us who are more needy of grace the benefits which have accrued in the church, which have been built up in the church through the holiness of the saints, basically. Christ in the first place, Mary and all the saints, the church's treasury as it's called, in relation to the Eucharist, to the sacrament of confession, praying for the Pope's intentions. That's the way in which we earn the indulgence. But the indulgence itself is all grace, a grace coming from Christ in the first place, and through his body, the church, to the rest of us.